the Great Emu War. It began, as many great conflicts do, not with a bang, but with a grumble. A very loud, farmer-shaped grumble. The enemy? Dromaeus novaelandii, a flightless bird with a neck long enough to see trouble coming from a mile away and legs fast enough to run from it. To the farmers of Western Australia, they were a feathered menace, a plague of beaks and feet. The farmers' pleas reached the capital. The government, in its infinite wisdom, decided to deploy the army. After all, what could be more effective against a bird than a soldier with a machine gun? Enter Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery, a man of serious purpose and impeccable uniform. He was tasked with leading the charge. Operation Emu Annihilation was a go. The Major and his men arrived with the latest in military hardware, 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. They were ready for war. The emus, however, seemed to have missed the memo. Initial engagement, Campion District. A flock of approximately 50 emus was spotted. Open fire, the Major commanded. The guns roared to life. The result? A tactical masterclass from the emus. Upon hearing the gunfire, the large flock instantly split into smaller, more agile groups, running in a zigzag pattern that baffled the gunners. Military report, Day 2. The emus have proved to be surprisingly difficult targets. Major Meredith noted in his log. They seem to have a leader, a magnificent bird of immense size and cunning. The soldiers tried new tactics. They mounted a gun on a truck, hoping to chase the emus down. The emus, it turned out, were faster than the truck on the bumpy terrain. The emus, for their part, developed their own strategies. They posted sentinels who would warn the flock at the first sign of the soldiers. They were organized, they were disciplined, they were winning. The press back home began to report on the war. The headlines were less than flattering. Emus defeat Australian army, one paper declared. The public found it hilarious. Back on the front lines, morale was low. The soldiers, once proud and determined, were now dusty, tired, and frankly, a little embarrassed. Major Meredith, a man not known for his sense of humor, was not amused. If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, he was quoted as saying, it would face any army in the world. After a week of fruitless chasing and a dismal kill rate, the first phase of the operation was called off. The soldiers packed up their guns and retreated. The emus, observing the departure of the strange, noisy humans, seemed to celebrate. They strutted through the fields, pecking at the wheat with an air of undeniable victory. But the farmers' grumbles continued, and so, a few weeks later, Major Meredith and his men were sent back for a second attempt. This time, they were determined to succeed. The second offensive was slightly more successful, but the emus were still far from defeated. They continued their clever tactics, always staying one step ahead of the soldiers. Finally, after weeks of what was becoming a national embarrassment, the military withdrew for good. The Great Emu War was over. The final tally: thousands of rounds of ammunition fired, a handful of emus defeated, and one very bruised military ego. The emus, on the other hand, had lost very little and had gained a legendary status. And so concludes the strange but true story of the only war in history that humans have ever lost to birds. A valuable lesson, perhaps, in underestimating your opponent, especially when that opponent has very long legs and a very small brain that is surprisingly good at military strategy.